What will the federal government do to cool red-hot gas prices at the pump? And can Canada step up and fill the energy needs in Europe? Let's find out. Joining me now is Canada's Natural Resources Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson. Minister, always a pleasure to have you on the program. I know you're at Houston taking part in a global energy conference, sir. I want to start on Canadian soil. Canadians, as you know, are feeling pain at the pump. Is the Canadian government planning to do anything to ease that? One option, a GST rebate. Two, delay the increases that the carbon price has this year. Are either of those, sir, on the table?
Well, look, I would say a few things. I mean, the first is clearly what is going on in Ukraine has had a big impact on energy markets, and it is a humanitarian tragedy, first and foremost. And we all need to be acting in a way to try to stabilize global energy markets. It is something that certainly I and my American colleague with whom I'm meeting in the next hour or so, as well as IEA ministers, International Energy Agency ministers, are talking about on an ongoing basis. That is the most important thing that we can do to try to bring prices back down to a more affordable level. Clearly, we need to be thinking about affordability going forward, as this government has over the course of the past number of years, in terms of the work that we've done in housing and childcare and the Canada Child Benefit. But we're going to obviously be thinking about anything that we can do with respect to affordability. The one thing I would say to you, though, Evan, is the second one that you put on the table there, which is the carbon price. I mean, look, the majority of Canadian families get more money back in the context of the carbon price than they pay. And so that would actually be a regressive move for those people who actually are being hurt most by the price going up.
Well, that's in the provinces that the federal government has a backstop, not in provinces like BC where they're paying $2, as you know. But just on that affordability, and then I want to get back to trying to loosen up the tight markets and maybe increasing supply. But is your government considering, and this goes back 20 years, as you know, potentially a GST rebate on gas for consumers?
Look, our government is considering all kinds of things to try to ensure that we are addressing the affordability issue. As I've said, we've acted in that manner for the past number of years. But we have to be clear. I mean, this is an international issue that is caused by a war that has been driven by Mr. Putin. And we clearly need to do two things. We need to look at how we can increase supply such that the markets have available supply, even in the context of some of the actions that, for example, the UK and the United States took today. But we also have to give certainty to the markets. Part of what the problem here is certainty. And so working with our counterparts, I'm in Paris in 2 weeks to do exactly this with IEA ministers, is to ensure that folks understand that there is a plan here and that people can have comfort that access to energy supplies are going to continue to exist such that we can calm these markets down.
Okay, but access may be there, but the price. So we go back to affordability. So the carbon price is going to go up, but you may take other measures. We don't know what they are. Let's go to the supply, because the Prime Minister today, when he was in Latvia, said, look, Canada will step up to help EU deal with their energy needs now that they're trying to wean themselves off Russia. I get it. But your government announced an extra 40 days to examine the Bay du Nord offshore oil project in Newfoundland and Labrador. That would be 200,000 barrels a day when complete. We have one half-built LNG project in Kitimat, as you know, and the government has rejected others. For example, the Quebec Energy Saguenay liquefied natural gas export in the Saguenay region. We know that. So how exactly could your government help Europe? Like, where's that energy going to come from?
Sure. So there's two pieces to this. The first is the short-term issues, and the second are sort of the medium and longer-term issues. I was at a meeting of IEA ministers last week where I will tell you every European minister said, we need to get off Russian natural gas and oil and do it very quickly. Initially, by replacing those supplies. But in the medium and longer term, we need to accelerate the drive towards renewable energy and hydrogen. And we need to ensure that we are expediting that such that we actually have sovereignty and energy security going forward. I think that Canada is looking at anything that it can do in the short term. As you say, there are constraints for Canada, but in the medium and the longer term, there are some real opportunities here to help our European friends. And those are not just in the form of perhaps LNG, but they also are very much in the form of hydrogen, which is where Europe wants to transition to and wants to transition to as quickly as they possibly can.
Look, I get the timelines. LNG is a medium to long term. It's billions and billions of dollars. But sir, to be fair, Germany's saying we need LNG. Did Canada miss the window on LNG? 7 years ago, there were 18 LNG projects being proposed in Canada. We built, as I say, Kitimat. In that period of time, the U.S. has built 7. They are currently building 5 more. They've approved, I think, even more than that already. Did Canada miss the boat on this? And did we regulate the LNG industry in Canada to death, and now we can't really help Europe because of it?
No, not at all. I think that we have looked at the LNG business, and as you said, that there is a large-scale LNG facility that's being built by LNG Canada in Kitimat. We are focused, though, on the longer term, which is LNG is a transitional fuel. You cannot continue to burn natural gas as we move towards a net zero future. And so you need to think about how you actually make that transition. That may well be in the context of helping Europe reduce its dependence on Russian natural gas by supplying LNG, which is a transition to hydrogen, whether that's produced from natural gas here in Canada or produced from natural gas in Europe. But those are exactly the conversations that we are having right now. And I would tell you that our European friends are very, very interested and engaged in that conversation.
I'm just trying to, speed matters. They're talking about a weaning off of mainly of 40% of Russian LNG by this year. They're talking about 100% weaning off well before 2030. Is Canada in the game on this? Or are you, sir, I'm just asking a serious question. Are you saying, look, LNG is transitional, it's mid to long term, we're not going to do anything like that, we'll just wait to see this pass, but the strategic needs for oil security are now? Give us a short-term strategy that Canada is engaged in to help get Europe off the dependency of Russian energy.
So, Evan, I would tell you that we are looking at every opportunity that we have to help Russia, whether it's with oil or gas, through debottlenecking of pipelines. To help Europe,
sorry, you said Russia. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you.
To help Europe.
You said Russia.
And our European colleagues through potentially debottlenecking of pipelines, through the potential to accelerate LNG development in a couple of different areas, but always in the frame that Europe puts it in, which is it has to fit within the frame of the fact that we're not just facing an energy security crisis, we still are facing a climate crisis. And at the end of the day, the decisions that we make have to actually fit within both of those envelopes. That's the same way that Germany approaches it, the same way the United Kingdom approaches it, the same way that France approaches it. And those are the exact constructive conversations that we are having and we are going to continue to have over the next few weeks.
Oh, okay. And I appreciate that, but the Russian invasion of Ukraine must change the calculation. You can't use the same math formula when the numbers have changed. Doesn't something have to change now that Russia has invaded Ukraine and Europe has made the remarkable decision to cancel Nord Stream 2 and to say no to Russian energy? That's a totally different accelerated timeline, isn't it?
It absolutely is, but I will come back to what I said to you before, which is the European ministers, and I've spoken to all of them through the course of the IEA discussions. Yes, there is an immediate near-term need simply to drop in replacements of Russian oil and gas, but the acceleration of the energy transition is the primary focus of where they are going. They want to actually have control of their future from an energy perspective. And so they are very much going to be looking at renewables and hydrogen on an accelerated basis going forward, in part to meet their energy security requirements, in part because they recognize that they cannot abandon their climate goals. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just as existential a threat as the energy security crisis that is affecting them today. And so Canada agrees, and Canada wants to do everything it can to help the Europeans to move down that path, which is the path that will actually help to ensure security and sovereignty, but it will also guarantee the long-term environmental sustainability of our planet.
I'm not saying it's not a difficult problem, and they may both be existential threats, as you say, but one's an existential threat today.
Well,
for a lot of
look, the
Ukrainians, as you know.
Europeans are very cognizant of that, and they have both of those issues on their mind, and they both need to live concurrently.
Listen, Minister. It's I look forward to seeing what discussions come of this. Natural Resource Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. It's an important discussion. Appreciate it, sir. Thanks.
Thank you very much.